in the Western Conference. Denver Nuggets, defending champs, in the driver's seat. Kings and the Lakers and the Warriors are all locked into the play-in. Suns trying desperately to come out of that number 7 spot. So a lot going on in the West, and we have our NBA crew back to play a game of fact or fiction, Western Conference theme, fact or fiction. Alan Hahn, the Suns need to win the West for this to be considered a successful season for them. Is that fact?
It's a fact.
Fiction?
It's a fact now because they're a play-in team right now. Like, look at what they've done since the All-Star break, 14-11. They're a mediocre team. You've got 3 stars. This experiment right now doesn't look like it's working, and Frank Vogel could lose his job if they don't get out of the first round. So, successful season? Yeah, the only way to save it now is to make a run and get to the conference finals. Question is, can they?
Can they, Monica?
I am a KD fan and believer. This is heavily matchup dependent for me. I just think that their big three, they're a little late in terms of focusing on offensive prowess, right? Like, as we look at big threes, the third guy is that Swiss Army knife that can defend, that's really versatile. And I just don't know about their depth in addition to it being centered on those 3 pieces.
And how about also, I mean, I love Devin Booker, but you can't tell me you're chilling when people ask you the level of frustration right now. You can't be chilling. Like, you got it. It's a pedal to the metal time. Like, you can't
tell them you're chilling.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
Well, it looks like it because you're down 35-2 in the start of a game against a Clipper team that's played nobody in that game. You got to start raising the level of expectations for yourselves on this team because next year, those 3 guys are going to cost $150 million. How do you keep that team together and it's not worth the while? So they've got a lot to prove right now. You can't be chilling. You need to go pedal to the metal and start really earning what a lot of people were giving you praise at the start of the season as one of the possible contenders in the West. Right now, pretender. Tonight's game against the Kings, that's your 7-8 play-in game. That's your 7-8 play-in game.
That's a big
for
game.
A team with 3 stars.
I want to go to Dallas now. I want to talk about the Mavericks because they have their foot on the pedal, right?
Yes.
Are they the biggest threat, Monica, to Denver in the Western Conference?
Faction. I think it's a fact.
Faction is not one of the choices.
Little hints of fiction on it. Listen, Dallas
from the
is
book
playing,
of Monica.
Dallas is playing excellent basketball. Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, they have transformed the way this team is able to defend. Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, they need no introduction in terms of what they're capable of. Somewhere in my mind, I know it's a big if, the Clippers are still out there, and I think when they are healthy, they've been able to play with force on both sides of the ball that I don't think has been matches in the upper echelon of the league this year. But currently, right now, yes, they've got the size. You've got Luka Doncic versus Nikola Jokic. They both control the pace and the tempo of the game. They are elite distributors, and they both want to get a bucket when they need to get it done. That would be a lot of fun.
I'd love to see that as a conference final.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, because you also got closers, right?
Yep.
You got Kyrie's a closer.
Nobody's
Luka's a
scared of the
closer.
moment, for sure.
That absolutely would be a fun series.
Yeah.
Interesting. Still, I can't get over faction. I think
it's mostly fact, but there's like a little clause where it might be fiction.
There's a dictionary, the American dictionary, then there's the Monica McNutt
there's a
dictionary.
get up,
completely
morning,
different.
television,
It's
3 hours of
updated.
sleep dictionary.
fact or fiction is not a segment that lends itself to gray area. We need an answer. Fact or fiction. I'm just
usually I'm the
saying.
one with the gray area.
It's my
not
world.
Monica, right? Like
Faction
usually it's
is the thing.
The Golden State Warriors are the most dangerous team in the play-in. Fact or fiction?
Well, that's fiction. I don't need to make up a word. I'm just the most dangerous. Like, come on now. Like, look, this is not to be disrespectful to what has been a great dynasty. I've mentioned this before, though. Name me the last dynasty that's had three eras. You know, they have not. They won their championship a couple of years ago. They were able to get one more ring out of this group. But there's other teams that you have to look at in the play-in right now. The Suns maybe even being one of them if they wake up. The Philadelphia 76ers, to me, are that team that is the most dangerous team in the play-in because of that guy they just showed you there, Joel Embiid, the 6 straight wins that they have had. He and Tyrese Maxey have been fantastic, and you do not want a playoff series with Nick Nurse as the coach on the other side.
Yeah, and I continue to go to like slightly bigger picture, right? Joel Embiid's road to get to this moment. I would argue that there's a different level of scar tissue. There's a different level of resilience, having been close, having come up short, having to navigate this injury, having already clocked his MVP, his personal life, he's growing as a husband, as a father, all those good things. Like, I just think there's probably a different level of focus for him as Philadelphia attempts to upset the apple cart. And for them, there's not reason for them to be worried about matching up with either the two, maybe the one, but the two
Well, that's my
or the
next
one
question.
in the East, right? Like, if anybody's going to push Boston, you have to mention the Sixers in that conversation in addition to the
I'm
Knicks.
sorry, did they not almost be? They had them on the ropes last year, that same exact team. So I actually think they shouldn't have any fear of the Celtics. And as the Sixers have to, we use pedal to the metal again, the Sixers have been that right now. The Celtics have kind of geared down, right? Because they've already had everything clinched.
Yeah.
So can they ramp it back up? And you got a first-round series. Like, think about it for Boston. If it's Philly, Philly's ready for you. If it's Miami, you're coming out of that series battered and bruised. Right. So the Celtics really got to turn it back up and get themselves ready because that first round is not going to be a cakewalk.
Ironically, I kind of feel like, given last year's history, the Celtics would probably ramp up the quickest and the hardest to run it back versus the Heat.
Yeah, I understand.
Right?
Yep.
Just for a revenge factor?
Scar tissue still there.
Man.
Yeah. Scar tissue still there.
So that sounds to me like it makes the 76ers even more kind of sneaky and dangerous for them than they'd be up for the Heat.
Make that argument for
Again, if you're Philly and you get that 7th seed and you're playing the Bucks, wounded animal in the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah.
Again, who should really be the favorite in that series if Giannis
If Giannis is unavailable, that game is completely
Imagine a 7th
changed.
seed as the favorite in that kind of a series.
Man, yeah, the Embiid return has obviously really made this fascinating, this early part of the NBA playoffs. We in the chase for the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference. ESPN Analytics says they actually have a 31% chance to get that 2 seed, but of course that means they have a 69% chance to get the 3rd. So that seems more likely at this point. But obviously a big statement victory going up to Boston and knocking off the Celtics. No matter, and the Celtics played their guys, right? Like they were.
Sure did. 3 quarters.
Yeah, Monica was there.
They did, but how hard did those starters play?
So I actually don't think that game was supposed to go that way. I thought the Celtics were legit playing through that first half. They just struggled to knock down shots. And then the 3rd quarter, I'll give you maybe they've taken their foot off the gas.
So coming out of that, Boston's sitting there, 13 games in front of everybody in the Eastern Conference. Obviously going to be the 1 seed. They've had that locked up. But, like, what kind of trust do we have in them at this point to actually do it?
Well, here, the only team that can beat the Celtics in the East, in my opinion, are the Celtics.
Right.
Because they have been their own worst enemy. Last year, that really was the reason why they didn't get to the NBA Finals. Play with their food throughout the playoffs last year. The series with Atlanta should have never gone 6. The series with the Sixers, an absolute abomination for both teams. And then that conference final, you think about how they went down 0-2 at home, went to Miami, and they got blown out in Game 3. How are you not ready for that game? They end up losing it in 7. So they don't get to the NBA Finals. And then this year when you watch them, they have been magnificent. They have been an unstoppable force. But there are times in games we've seen this season where they have blown big leads, where they have not had good finishes. And then here's your other question. When you look at the coaching in the East, you ask yourself, when do they have the matchup where you say, I'll take Joe Mazzulla over the opponent's coach? And in the playoffs, that stuff matters, Mon.
Yeah, and that is a tough question to ask. I think this year is a little bit different. They're a year older. They're wiser. The addition of Kristaps Porzingis to me makes a huge difference in terms of the way that teams can guard them with the physicality. He obviously stretches those 4s and 5s with his ability to knock down the 3 and handle the ball. But I also think the emergence of Derek White, to me, is a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. In that run to the finals, he was traded mid-season. I think he is solidified in who he is and in his role. And, of course, Drew Holiday gives them that championship pedigree. So I think that there's not a ton to take away from that game if you're the Boston Celtics. The feeling in the arena is that they've been playing basically meaningless basketball for a month, and so they were due for one of these
This game meant more to the Knicks than it did to the Celtics.
So I want to ask you about the Knicks. Now you're talking about them as the 2 or 3 seed in the East. What is their ceiling? What can they accomplish? How deep on a playoff run can Jalen Brunson lead the Knicks?
Listen, man, you got to play the ball games. To me, this is the team that still has the ability to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And yes, it looks different than what you thought it might, but Jalen Brunson has been tremendous. I mentioned over the highlight, he was on the brink of 3 consecutive 30-point games. I believe it's 5, if not more, in the 30-point category, and 40-point was the first number, excuse me. He just continues to find a way, and this team has truly adopted that mindset sincerely. From head coach Tom Thibodeau on down, they're going to find a way. And the other night, we're talking to OG Anunoby after the game. He's very matter-of-fact in terms of how he can add value. They are simple things, but they have a profound impact.
Biggest